And good evening, I'm Jonathan Higgins.
I'm Rich Carlson.
And we're the Scanner Guys, and we're live this evening talking about those problems that you run into with your scanner. Some of those are hobbyist problems that just entering into the hobby, and some of those are some that you run into over time with particular models or when you do particular things. So we're going to try to cover all of those. Now keep in mind we're going to do an overview of all these. Some of the fixes pertain to particular radios in certain ways, so you have to consult your manual, or we're going to refer to, as we do many times, markscanners.com is a great website. Basically gets you through any situation through layman's terms, a little bit easier to understand versus your scanner manual. So
I refer so many people to that website. It is really good, and we're happy to be partners with that. So
yeah, so definitely keep that in mind. We're going to cover as many of these things this evening. So I'm so happy that you're joining us. You know, we are broadcasting live right now. In case you're just joining us for the first time, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We'd love to have you as a subscriber to our channel. Let's get the show underway right now. And as I mentioned, police scanner doctors fixing common problems. And this is the Scanner Guys. So we want to make sure that you follow, like, and subscribe to the Scanner Guys social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And check out our brand new website, thescannerguyshow.com. Thescannerguyshow.com. Make sure you bookmark that website. We'll be putting on additional content there. And make sure you hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel right now. We also have our own newsletter, which you can subscribe to on our website, thescannerguyshow.com. And you'll be able to find out more about, upcoming events and so on that we may be doing in the near future. Or we may even remind you of some shows that you may have missed. So we're going to be doing that monthly newsletter, typically every month. We may skip a couple of months, but, typically it's once a month. So definitely subscribe to our newsletter at our website, thescannerguyshow.com. And while you're there, check out our merch. We have t-shirts and hats and now a coffee mug. So if you're looking for a coffee mug, certainly pick up any one of those things or all three on our website, thescannerguyshow.com. And that helps to keep the shows going here on YouTube. A lot of the equipment and so on that we've upgraded have came from this fund. So definitely support us in this way by purchasing any of these items in the Scanner Guys store. We also have some Scanner Guys headline news. As many of you know, the Uniden database and firmware updates, which you do through Sentinel software, they're actually having some issues with the Uniden servers. They've been going off and on for the last couple of days due to power outages and so on. So if you're pinging, for an update from the database in the Sentinel software, you may not be able to access it. So definitely keep that in mind. As everybody knows in the news, they've been getting extremely cold temperatures and dealing with lots of power failures down there in Texas. That's where they're located, their headquarters. So definitely keep that in mind. And then please try again if you're not able to access for updates and firmware for your scanner. So definitely keep that in mind. That's some Uniden news right there. But I'm sure once they get through this storm that they've been going through, everything will be better there. So the first portion of the program, we're going to talk about the programming things that you can typically run into. There's a lot of things that you can run into programming-wise. We're going to cover the key ones that most people ask about a lot. So let's take a look here at the first slide. This one, has been a big issue with the SD card access errors. And this can happen in many ways. If the SD card is not inserted properly, if there's a problem with one of the files, let's say you are updating the SD card and you've deleted one of the folders, or one of the files became corrupt, and then it'll create an SD card error. So there's multiple ways to fix it. One, if you're computer savvy, reformat the SD card, and then you'll be able to, once you reformat the SD card, clear it out, you'll be able to use the Sentinel software to reset the card. And you'll see a video if you go on the Scanner Master YouTube channel. There's a video that I put together on how to do that. And pretty much any of the Uniden SD card radios, such as the Home Patrol 1 and 2, 436, 536, SDS 100 and 200, basically follow the same instructions on how to do that. And you can do it right through the Sentinel software, and the video will actually step you through how to do that.
Yeah, and it's actually very simple. If you're going to have a brand new card, you're going to have to format it in Windows first, and then you're going to have to format it with the Sentinel software, and that's done by the clear user data. There's one thing to remember on that. When you hit that clear user data item in the Sentinel menu, there's a little checkbox that comes up on the window. And I've actually talked to 2 different people just today about this very issue. There's a little checkbox on that window that pops up. It says, View all drives. You have to click that in order to see a brand new SD card. Otherwise, Sentinel's not going to see it because it doesn't understand that card. So once you click that button, you can then select that card, and then you hit OK, and that clear user data function is going to write the necessary files from Sentinel onto the SD card, and then it'll be recognizable by your scanner.
Yeah, that's certainly a great thing to be able to do it yourself. If you're not able to do it yourself, you certainly visit our retail partner, scannermaster.com. They actually have a service for an SD card replacement. If you don't have the time or you're not technically savvy, visit their website, scannermaster.com. There is a link in the description of this video, which will lead you to the website, which benefits the scanner guys, of course, if you use that link. And you'll be able to check out the SD card replacement programming under Program on their website and be able to replace it for any one of those radios that I mentioned earlier. So definitely check that out, and we'll continue on. Whoops, I went one too many too far. This is a typical issue that we've dealt with a lot, and these heap errors. Way back, Radio Shack and GREs were the first radios that came up with these heap errors, and also the Whistler radios. It's basically when there's an issue with a scan list or a talk group that's not assigned a particular object, I should say. That's object driven, this radio. So each item is an object. And when it's not assigned a scan list or it's not assigned to a trunking system, if it's a talk group, it'll create what's called a heap error. Now, when you're programming this, let's say you're programming this by hand, it'll work fine until you reboot the radio. The radio is going to then look for why is this talk group floating and it's not associated with anything, or if it's a particular frequency that's not assigned to a scan list that's floating, it doesn't know where it goes. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to create a heap error, because it, with the programming on those radios, everything is connected to another thing. And when it's not connected to another thing, it's floating in space, and it confuses the living bejesus out of the radio. It literally, it's like, okay, what is this? Why is it here? And I don't know what to do.
Yep. It just throws up its hands and says, forget it. I'm done. I'm going to throw out this heap error, and it gives you some numbers that don't mean a darn thing. And the only way you can get past it is to basically erase the radio and start over again. So if you have done it by computer, it's not a big deal, because you can fix the error because you have the file on your computer, and then write it to your radio and try it again and make sure everything's good. If you've done all that programming by hand, and you've done a lot of programming by hand, get used to it, because you're going to have to do it all over again.
Yeah, so the key thing when programming it by hand is you want to make sure with the menu it drives down. It's basically it's almost like filling out a worksheet. You're filling in the blanks for each one of the items. So when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you're filling in the key essential lines. So get in the habit of it if you're programming it by hand to fill in the key essential items. If you're doing this with software, as Rich said, Butel ARC 500, great software, which you can also purchase at our retail partner, Scanner Master. Click the link once again in the description of this video, and you can check out that under software on the website. So the key thing that Rich mentioned is if you've programmed it through software, you need to go through and find where this error is. Because if you just then send this programming back to the radio again, the next time you reboot the radio, it's going to do the heap error again. So you have to find the issue. And it's like Rich said, when the scanner turns on, it's going to give you a bunch of numbers that don't mean anything. And it's not going to tell you where it is.
Right.
So it's going to you're going to have to do a little bit of detective work to be able to figure out what is wrong.
So the easiest thing to do and the most common cause of a heap error is a talk group that is in the radio, but it's not assigned to a trunk system. So go through all your talk group options and make sure that every talk group is assigned to a trunk system. And you can double click on that TSYS column and make sure it's assigned to one. And if it isn't, then that's what's going to cause that error. And make sure every talk group is actually assigned to it.
Now, the good thing about programming with software, especially with the Butel software, the ARC 500, it will default to scanless 1.
Right.
Typically, where people run into the object floating is when they're programming it manually.
Yeah.
Because when you program it manually, you need to go in there and assign that particular object a scan list. But with the Butel software, the great thing about it is Gomert over at Butel knew this was a problem and made it so it defaulted to scanless 1. So the great thing about that is he's trying to prevent you from having this issue. So remember that too is, let's say you do program your scanner and you're wondering, why is everything in scanless 1? Because it defaults to that. So in the software, if you want to separate it out, do it accordingly. But the good thing about it is with the software, you don't run into that issue. It's when you're manually freestyle programming through the keypad that definitely creates a major issue. So definitely keep that in mind, those pesky heap errors. So now we're covering a lot of heap errors tonight, or errors, I should say. Let's take a look at the next culprit. This is one that boggles people's minds like crazy. Yeah. And it's the nothing to scan. And this is quite an easy fix. And you got a couple of scenarios here, Rich. Let's tell them about some of these scenarios, why this comes up after doing what you're supposed to do.
Right. So when you program your radio, and this is very common for a lot of people, when you program the radio, you send it to the radio, and now the radio says, I ain't got nothing to scan. Well, it's all there in the radio, but you have to do several things. If you got a database scanner, make sure that your service types are selected. And you go into select service types, and you can see all the different service types that are available to that particular scan list or database, either the full database or a favorites list that you've created. And if there are service types that are available to you, it'll say either off or on. And you can change that by selecting it and then just tapping the button, the big silver button on this particular radio, or the knob on a handheld, and it will automatically toggle it back and forth. And if you go through all those and you don't see anything, check custom 1, because custom 1 is the one that is automatically defaulted to it if you don't go in there and change it. So when you enter frequency into a favorites list and you don't change the service type, it'll default to custom 1, and people will forget to turn on custom 1. And once you turn on the appropriate service types, that should go away if that was your problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of issues there. I mean, that's something that sometimes boggles people's minds.
Yeah. And the next one is location control. So, and if you're using a GPS or more likely a zip code, make sure that number one, the location that you have selected is correct and it matches or is included in the location that you've programmed into that particular scan list. So if you've programmed a scan list and you have set location control, you have to actually be in the area selected by the center point and range that you set up. If you're outside that bubble, then the radio is going to say, sorry, ain't got nothing here. The next one is sites programmed or enabled. And this came up at least once today, and the other day I had at least one or two callers. They spent hours programming this trunking system. They said it's a P25 system. They put in 250 talk groups, and they put it on there, and nothing to scan.
There's no sites. That's why.
No sites. So it said, did you program in the sites? Sites? What sites? I don't know. So I told them, okay, so when you program a trunking system, you have to do three things. First, you have to tell the radio what kind of trunking system it is. Number two, you have to program in the talk groups that you want to listen to. And number three, you have to program in the sites. And that's the one that everybody forgets. The sites are where the frequencies go.
They think of the talk groups as frequencies. Essentially, that's what a lot of people think is that talk group number is a frequency where it isn't. It's just an identification number of that particular channel on the system. But yeah, and the other thing is quick keys. When those are all turned off, guess what's going to happen? Nothing to scan. So you want to make sure that those are enabled. And the way to be able to tell, if you see on the two bottom lines a bunch of stars across the screen, that means that things are turned off, especially on the S line, the system line.
Right.
It'll indicate those things are off. You need to turn those things on. And those are basically the nothing to scan. So there's lots of different scenarios there. As you can see, we have the GPS, aspect of it, not programming any sites, turning off quick keys, service types if it's on a database scanner. So there's a lot of things that could go wrong. So, when you're in this situation, troubleshoot. Yet again, doing a little bit of detective work will go a long way.
Yep, absolutely.
Let's continue on with our slideshow here tonight. And a lot of issues have occurred with batteries. Batteries can be a culprit. And the batteries are common play with any one of these portable radios. So let's take a look. So batteries, for the most part, use the best batteries for your model radio. For the SDS 100, there's a special battery. So you really just use that battery and you should be okay. For handheld radios, most common of them, use AA cells, whether it be rechargeable batteries or you can use alkaline batteries if you wish. Rechargeable batteries are cheaper in the long run, but can be a pain if you're not managing them correctly.
I don't use rechargeable batteries. I usually use alkalines. I buy them at Sam's Club or Costco. I buy a big package of them, and I just use them. Yeah, it's going to be more expensive, but for me, it's easier. For you, it might be better with rechargeables.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, if you're a daily user of the radio, so let's say you're using your portable scanner for 8 hours, you're going to drain those batteries down after the end of the day. So you'll recharge them at the end of the day, and then the next day they're freshly charged. If you're the casual user, you may be using it for 6 hours one day and then not using it for a while, and then you go to use it a few days later, and then you only have a couple hours worth of charge.
Yep.
And that's the reason why you keep an extra spare set in case. You want to make sure that the batteries have a sufficient ampage for your radio. You want to make sure that you have a backup set, because if you don't have a backup set, that's when your radio is going to die and you're not going to have the ability to listen to your radio anymore, especially if you're into rail fanning or aviation or any of those things. I've used rechargeable batteries. They work great when you're always using them and you're keeping... like if you're using them all day and you've drained them, charge them up at the end of the day, and then have them ready for the next day. But if you're a casual portable user, alkaline batteries may be the best option, because you carry a couple of sets, and then whatever, if they die within 2 hours, you got another set to plop in your radio.
Yeah, whenever I go rail fanning or plane watching, when I take usually my 125, I always take an extra set of batteries, and I just throw them in my shirt pocket, or if you got jeans, that little pocket on the right hand side, that tiny little pocket there is perfect for 2 or 3 AA batteries.
Just
I think
make
that's
sure,
why it was there.
well, just take them out before it hits the laundry. That's
Yeah, been there and done that.
But yeah, that's definitely batteries are definitely a key thing. Let's take a look at the next slide. So, kind of diving into more of the rechargeable battery component. Now, the great thing about having an external battery charger is a couple of things. You have the ability to swap batteries and then throw the other batteries on the charger, let them charge. The other thing too is you're not charging them inside the device in case something goes haywire with the battery.
Yeah.
Your radio, whether it be the SDS 100, or the 125 AT, it's anywhere from $100 and some odd to hundreds and hundreds of dollars. These rechargeable devices are well below that. You're looking at the battery charger above, you're looking at probably about $30-$40 depending on the battery charger you get. You can also purchase one from ScannerMaster. We do have both of these products. Check out our retail partner, ScannerMaster. Their website link is in the description of this video, so definitely click that and check out under power and batteries. But both of these items are available through ScannerMaster. The thing is these items are a lot cheaper, than replacing your whole entire radio. So, and the great thing about it is, you're also able to charge multiple sets. Let's say you're on a road trip. Now, the great thing about it is, let's say you had those AA rechargeable batteries, so you've exhausted both sets that you had. Now, the great thing about it is you can in this occasion, I would say, charge one set in your radio and charge the other set on your charger.
Yep.
And you can charge them both up, and then you're ready to go for the next day. The other thing,
if you take a look at the picture of the charger for the AA batteries, you'll notice it also comes with the cigarette lighter plug, so you can plug it into your car.
yes, that's another great component there, is being able to do that while you're on the road. So if you're going to be driving for hours to the next destination, you'll be able to charge those up pretty quickly. Usually they take about a couple hours. So if you've got a couple hour drive ahead of you, plug them in, charge them up.
Absolutely. And those outboard chargers charge the batteries faster than if you plug them in use the radio to charge it. Typically, a radio will take 12 to 14 hours to fully charge a set of batteries, and these chargers will charge it in a lot less time.
Yeah, and the other thing too is a lot of people, think they can, running the radio and charging the batteries at the same time is going to take it even longer because it's doing two components. You can run. So let's say if you're running your SDS 100, you can run your radio without the battery in it.
Right.
So if you're one of those users that are using this radio in your home and you always have it plugged in, take the battery out. We're going to get into reasons why you should take those batteries out, especially for a longer period of time. So we're going to show you a photo of one little horror story there, but yeah.
So there was a question about the SDS 100. Tony asked just a minute ago, can you get the battery charger separate for the SDS 100?
Yes.
Yes. You can get the charger. When you buy the charger, it comes with the spare battery. So when you buy the charger itself, it comes with the battery and the charger for the wall. It does not come with a mobile charger. So if you want to charge it in a vehicle, you're either going to have an AC inverter or charge the battery in the radio with the USB cable.
Yeah, and you're better off charging it when you get to your destination, when you're able to use a wall outlet.
Yeah.
Because unless you're going to be driving for 12 hours, you're only going to be able to charge that up for a short period of time. Yeah. And it's eventually going to die again, because you've only been able to charge it for a couple hours. But yeah, that kit that Uniden came out with, I was quite happy with it because it comes with the battery. So that means that you'll have two batteries, and you'll be able to alternate those batteries too. That alternates the charging too. So you're not, doing 400 charges on one battery. You can split the charges, and these batteries, having two, will last a lot longer.
Yep. Yeah, they told us in the police academy, never wear the same pair of shoes 2 days in a row. You buy two pairs of shoes, they'll last you 3 years. You buy one pair of shoes, it'll last you a year. So you'll get a lot more life out of them. Same thing with batteries. You get a lot more life out of a couple sets of batteries than you would on individual ones. And you always have that cycle going.
Yeah, and the great thing about it, like we were making the example, you're out all day listening to the scanner. One battery goes down, swap the battery out, and then this evening, to put that battery in the charger when you go to your hotel or when you're at home, and then you have one fresh battery, and then you got one battery that's probably got a little bit more life in it. So run it down, swap them out. And these are all great products there. So let's dive into more battery stuff. This is where we're going to get a little bit scary.
You might want to blow this picture up, make it full screen so that people can see it easier.
So this is common. That happens a lot with batteries, especially with rechargeable batteries. Anytime that you put a radio into storage, let's say you're not going to use your portable radio and you're not going to use it, for a while, take the batteries out.
Yep.
And the other thing too, if you're charging the batteries inside the radio, check the batteries occasionally. Make sure they're not leaking. Make sure they're not getting a little bit fatter than they're supposed to be. Because, you want to catch this before it creates, as you can see there, damage to the radio.
Yeah, and the batteries can actually explode or start burning up, overheating, and they can also expand, which could damage the radio because eventually that expansion is going to have to go someplace. So it's either going to break the battery door off or break the battery connector or do some other nasty badness to your radio. And if it starts leaking, now you got all that, if it's an alkaline battery and those start leaking, you're going to have all that white crud and it's going to corrode the metal contacts. So now you got a cleaning thing to go through and all the rest of that. But that's the least of your problems. If this thing starts, burning or, that's going to cause bigger problems.
Yeah, so definitely you want to keep an eye on these batteries. You want to make sure that they look proper and make sure they're not doing any of those things. I mean, just taking a few moments to occasionally do that is going to be a huge benefit to you because you're going to catch it before it gets worse.
Yeah.
Oops. The mouse is a little trigger happy.
A little touchy today, huh?
Let's see, where were we?
There you go.
Okay, we were. Okay, so these are typical audio issues that you run into with the scanner. I mean, these are involving a couple of different aspects, but some audio glitches that we may experience. Now, the one that sticks out and a lot of people ask about is the SDS 200 with its hum. Some SDS scanners have a notable hum coming out from a poor ground. Be sure that you have the latest firmware update via Sentinel software. This will allow you to eliminate that hum. They put in a menu option which will basically mute the audio when there's no radio traffic being presented over the radio. And there's the directions right there. Basically going into the menu, settings, audio, off, time, and then set it right to that 500 milliseconds. Right. And that'll alleviate that. There's also been some other things that the manufacturer presented, to be able to do various things. But yeah, firmware is definitely a key thing. I know right now that Uniden is having issues with their server, so you may not be able to access the firmware at this given time. But definitely do that. If you notice there's a little bit of a hum when there's no radio communication being present on the radio, do this firmware update. I've done this and it works great. Literally, it just basically will end that hum when there's no audio being present from the radio.
Right, and that's really about the only time you're going to notice it. If you're one of those adventurous type people who don't mind voiding warranties and all the rest of that stuff, there are some other physical fixes for it. But if you do that, you're on your own. So Uniden doesn't support those type of modifications to the radio, but like I say, if you're adventurous and you don't mind risking your $700 radio, then you can go ahead and try that. But most of the time, if you have that little piece in there, and the radios that come from the factory now already have that piece, and from what I understand, the newer radios are less prone to this hum than before, so maybe they've fixed something in the manufacturing process. But it's a little postage stamp piece of metal that goes when you take the black cover off, and you can do this on your radio without voiding your warranty, of course. You take the black cover off the back of your SDS 200, there's 4 screws on the back of it, and slide that out, and on the top panel there's screws on the side that hold the top panel on. Take those screws out, take that top panel, a little postage stamp piece of metal that goes between the frame and the 2 frame pieces just behind the display on the top. Is I'm pointing to the radio picture here.
Yeah, they're in the back there, and
yeah,
and that's
right in here on the SDS. So inside that black cover, and then inside the clamshell.
Yes. The radio is actually, when it's doing this, it's a new feature called meditating.
Yes.
So it's focusing on what's needed to pick up in the next radio transmission. It's trying to meditate while it scans. It's a relaxing thing, especially if you've gone crazy and programmed thousands upon thousands of things for it to scan. It needs to meditate because it sometimes will get a headache.
Yeah. So give your radio an aspirin.
All right, and we'll continue on here. And we've talked about this a dozen times. Oh, those overcoming simulcast. Besides getting an SDS 100 and 200, you can try a few tricks that may work. Also, the unication radios are not having to overcome simulcast. That's probably why the 200 hums, because it's able to keep that simulcast away. So directional antennas, which we talked about last week, those beam and directional antennas are perfect because you're aiming at one of those sites. You're eliminating all the other sites, so it's not getting confused. If you're just joining the show for the first time and you're wondering, what the heck is simulcast? Is this some sort of disease my scanner gets? No, it's not. It's basically what happens is, not to get too in the weeds, but digital sends zeros and ones, which is called binary code. And it just travels through the air. And what happens is there's 2 towers at the same exact time sending out a signal. And your scanner's within range of it. And the binary code gets mixed together. And then the scanner's like, I don't know what to do. And so basically what'll happen is you'll have dropouts in audio, or it'll do blah, 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 and you're like, what the heck was that? So with simulcast issues, you're going to run into that. But there's directional antennas. For example, we see two towers there on the screen. So if we have a directional antenna, we aim it at that one that's at the right top, we're going to block out anything that's coming from the other antenna. Because if we have right there, we have a little rubber duck antenna, really nice rubber duck antenna on our scanner. But the thing is, it's omnidirectional. It's going to pick up both of those, and it's going to get so confused with all that binary code mixing in together. It's almost like going into a blender, and your scanner's like, ugh.
Yeah. Or like Joe said, it's trying to listen to conversations coming from all over the room all at the same time.
I mean, it's almost like your scanner is becoming schizophrenic. It's hearing multiple voices.
Yeah. So that directional antenna is like cupping your ear.
It's
Hey,
listening in. Yes, this is the tower I want to listen to. Here's something we don't tell people every day: a less efficient antenna. Believe it or not, making it worse instead of better is going to help things. I mean, we've used the example, Rich, the paperclip example. Tell people about the paperclip example.
I've told people that, and they're like, "What the are you talking about?" And they say, "Try it; it might work." And they call back an hour later and said, "My God, it works!" And basically, you just unfold a paper clip and take the antenna off the radio and put the end of the paper clip into the antenna connector and use that. And what you're doing, and that same thing with the directional antenna or using, a reflector on your antenna, you're forcing the radio to ignore that tower and only hear that tower. And if you can force it to hear just one tower instead of 2 or 3 or 17, then the radio will pick it up much, much better. And I had a guy, I don't know, about a month ago, I told him the paper clip, and he's like, "Yeah, right, sure." And he hung up. He called back a couple minutes later and apologized, said, "I don't know why or how, but it works like a champ." And so now this guy's walking around with a paper clip on his 436. He looks like an idiot, but the radio works.
The other example, relocating the antenna or scanner. Now, we talked about this last week. We talked a ton about antenna options. We talked about that chimney mount. And you know how chimneys can create an issue with blocking the signal if you have the antenna too low and it's at the chimney's level? Mm-hmm. Guess what? This may actually help you, because if you're able to put one of those antennas up and the chimney's blocking it from the other tower, then it may actually help. Just by relocating the antenna on the chimney, may actually adjusting that to one side, you may eliminate that simulcast issue. The other thing too, in your home, for example, moving the scanner from one spot to another in the house, you may create a blind spot from that other tower, and then you're good to go. So think outside the box, moving the scanner, maybe moving that antenna. If it's a telescopic antenna, maybe not have it all the way out, maybe lower it, maybe move it, like Rich was showing, putting it straight out, or
lay the radio on the desk like this and see if it works better. Put it at an angle, point it towards you, point it back. There's just try to find that sweet spot.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a sweet spot there. And the other thing too is if you're in an apartment dwelling and you've got the antenna, let's say you've got one of those Spectrum Force mobile antennas with mag mount, and you got it sitting on the windowsill, and you're getting a ton of simulcast issues, and you love using that antenna for other things, move it away from the window.
Yeah.
Put it somewhere else in the room. You may be able to. That's the great thing about using that antenna. If you're not able to, you can leave your scanner in that spot, and you've got 12 feet of coax cable where you can move that antenna wherever you want in the room.
All right. If you're going to use that paperclip trick that we talked about a couple minutes ago, Joe brings up a very good point. You got to be very careful that if you're listening to police traffic, you have to use a blue paperclip. If you're listening to fire traffic, it has to be red. If you're listening to public works, it has to be yellow. If you're listening to a railroad, it has to be green. So, make sure you use the appropriate color.
Yes, colors matter when it comes to paper clips and what you're monitoring.
Absolutely.
And then the attenuator. Sometimes this helps, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, the thing is try it. If it works, good. If it doesn't, turn off the attenuator.
And we get this call all the time about people at the Home Patrol, and they say it's not picking up anything. And we ask them, was that you see where it says ATTEN on the top of the display, and if that's lit up red, then the attenuator's on. They say, "Oh well, yeah, I turned that on because that's supposed to make it better." Not normally, but in this case, it might.
Okay, one thing that I have to admit on both the Home Patrol 1 and 2 that I wish that was eliminated during beta testing was the attenuator. because that's the common thing that a lot of people run into. They may try to do what Rich said, or they may turn it on by accident
Yeah.
and just go through, yes, I want this on. I don't know what the hell it is, but I want it on.
Yeah.
And then don't realize that they have it on. Or whoever the home person that likes to fiddle with things that don't belong to them goes in to the den, turns on the scanner, turns on the attenuator, turns the scanner off, and then the scanner user, comes in the room, turns it on, thinks nothing of it, and then sitting there for an hour, 2 hours, and went, boy, I haven't heard a darn thing.
Boy, it's really quiet night tonight.
Really quiet. Yeah. Then you hear the sirens going past your house and nothing on your scanner.
Yep.
So that's one thing that I think, if there ever is a Home Patrol 3, don't put that attenuator on the top line, because it just creates all types of havoc with people that are not familiar with it. So that's another audio issue. This one is a big one. And this one, people think there's something wrong with reception. When they call up, my scanner is not receiving correctly. And then it's diving into, what is your scanner doing? And it's, the audio is dropping out. Or it's, I'm not getting the full call. Or it's clipping out. There's so many different phrases of describing this. It'll be, all cars, please respond to. Subjects are. And then it'll probably go into scan after that point. So it's the radio's audio is dropping out every couple of seconds. And typically this happens when either people turn on these particular things and don't realize it's going to happen, or they turn it on by accident and they don't know it's running in the background.
Yeah, and that's a close call is a big part of that, because on some of the scanners you just press one of the buttons, and a lot of people don't realize that the squelch and the volume have push functions on it, and they tap the button. Either one, they don't know what it was for, or number two, they didn't realize they were pushing it when they were going to adjust the squelch or something, and then they turn on close call by accident and they get just this. And like I say, we get that call almost every day.
Yeah, and that's the thing of it. It's literally what it's doing is the radio is checking those items, checking for priority channel, checking for close call, checking for weather priority. It's going back and forth. I never use that. I don't use priority. Typically, I program in a set of frequencies that are in there. It's going to be enough of balance, so I'll be able to receive most calls. Priority. Unless you don't mind it, the audio clipping out, it can become a nuisance if you don't like that. Close call, Well,
there's some of the radios. If your radio supports close call, do not disturb.
That is good. That is good.
Yeah. So what close call do not disturb means is it'll check for close call, but only when the radio is not engaged in listening to something else. So that way you don't get that rhythmic cutting out of all your conversations. It only checks for traffic on the close call when the radio is not listening to some other channel, which saves you from that.
And that's definitely, if you have one of these radios in your vehicle and you want to use close call as you're traveling, do close call, do not disturb. It'll fill in the dead air in between when there's no activity. And you may find something interesting. Especially if you're in a highway and you got a couple of truckers communicating with each other, you may hear some interesting conversation. Keep in mind, if you have those younger ears in the vehicle, the language could get a bit colorful on that band.
Yes. I love close call. I like close call so much. I always have a radio. I have one of my radios in the rack set to close call. I have a 996P2 in my van that does nothing but listen to close call. And best investment I made. I love listening to close call. I have found hundreds of new frequencies and oddball stuff, just driving down the road, listening for stuff right there. And just like you say, I pulled up alongside a gravel truck out here. We have gravel trucks everywhere out here. And these guys are chit chatting away, and I'm listening to every word they say. And if it's a nice day and I got the windows open, they key the mic, and then they get the squeal, and they're looking around.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a real cool thing. Weather priority, too. I mean, the great thing about weather is being able to have access to it on the scanner, but if you're using this for the primary use of weather, then, don't get an SDS 200 to do weather.
No.
You can get one of those $30 NOAA weather radios, and you can even set it so it'll do an alert when there is a tornado or hurricane or any type of weather-related emergencies. You can set that to it.
You'd be surprised at how often people will call and order an SDS 100 or a 536 or 996, and all they're going to use it for is weather alerting.
No.
You don't need to do that. And if they want a scanner, they get the BCT15X if you want a weather alert radio, because it's a lot cheaper and it'll work just fine on that. And I actually had a guy that insisted on getting an SDS 200 only to use it for weather alerting. Hey, it's your money, partner. I tried to save you $400-$500, but
okay, we've got some color updates. I want to bring this to you live and local right now. Joe has indicated blue for PD, red for fire, green for EMS, purple, unofficial security, gray for correctional facilities, and this is more so for Europe than the U.S.
Yeah, so if you can't get blue paper clips in the U.S., then, where you're at, then you're not going to be able to listen to the police. I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do about that. But the railroads and aircraft, I think yellow is a good one for railroads.
Okay, well, wasn't that for the highway department?
Well,
they
yeah.
wear the orange.
Oh, orange, yeah. Orange intended for the highway department, for the vest, yeah.
Yes.
Yellow because that's the most predominant color out here, at least for railroads. So it's either yellow or orange, but orange is already a highway department. So.
Yeah, or if it's CSX, you would have blue or yellow. We could really complicate the living crap out of this. A black paperclip for Norfolk Southern.
Yeah.
All right, we're just going to leave this alone because, we could just go to town.
Yeah, but see, the railroads don't use simulcast, so the paperclip isn't going to help you.
Yeah, don't use the paperclip.
Situation resolved. There you
go. The dirty word, the encryption word. And this is this is newbies in the hobby. They've got some interest into the hobby. They get a lot of interest in the listening to the police because there may be a lot of police activity in their neighborhood, and they're wondering, I want to be able to listen to the police department. And then they hear from a neighbor or whoever says they're encrypted. So they call up and looking for a scanner that can pick up encryption. Unfortunately, nothing will work.
Right. Yeah, it's too bad. And it was really funny because when I was shopping for a new house a few years back, and we picked the house that we're at, and one of the things I checked, being a scanner guy that I am, was that I could hear the local police department. And sure enough, when we were out here, we could pick up the local police department. Cool. So we moved here on March 30th. On April 1st, they cut the switch and they went encrypted. It was like, the day after I moved in.
So, Joe, clarification on
he was a bit serious.
Clarification, Joe. Thank you so much. So this is the official colors of the emergency vehicles out in the UK. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you wanted to go and correspond it with that, and that's the same thing with any of these. We're making all jokes about the paperclip thing, but the other cool thing you can use the lights for the various radios is the light indication on the radio. With a lot of these manufacturers, they actually have, whether it be the backlight or there could be an LED light somewhere on the radio, whether it's behind of a knob or it's an indicator light, you can assign it a particular color.
Yep.
And this is awesome.
Yeah, I got my 536 here, and it's the light around the big silver knob. On the 996, it's the background color of the display, and on the SDS 200, it's again behind the knob. I think, right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, yeah. So some radios have it. There's a little spot over here on the side. There's an LED on the front of the radio. On the 436, there's an LED but near the speaker. So every radio is going to be a little bit different. But the unit in radios that have the color, it's a great feature. So you can set, so you can look at the radio and instantly tell what colors you programmed and what the service is talking. But you have to actually program every channel in your favorites list or your systems for those colors.
And if you're not too sure how to do that, yet again, I mentioned at the top of the show and all of the things that we mentioned, if you're not too sure how to do those things, the directions is going to be a little bit different for each radio. So go to markscanners.com and then you'll be able to search it out on his online manual and be able to see how to do that. We could go into each radio and the step-by-step instructions, but you'll be here all day waiting for when they're going to get to the SDS 200 on how to do it on there. It's, the directions for the most part, the unit and brand are very similar, but there could be a couple little things that are slightly different.
Yeah. The programming, the colors is pretty much the same on the radio, but where the color is on the radio is going to be different.
Yes. So that's definitely, color programming is something that we can definitely dive into a little bit more at a later date. But it is now the time for you to ask your questions. So what kind of problems have you ran into? What type of things do you, like if you were to bring in your scanner into the doctor, what are things that you would need to be either diagnosed or you need to figure out how to fix it? Or how to make it better. So we're going to dive into that in the second half of the show. In case you're just joining us, basically in the first hour of the show or the first 45 minutes, we cover all the meat and potatoes of the broadcast, which includes, the topic of discussion. Second half, we answer questions regarding the topic or just general scanner questions. So welcome to the show. If this is the first time you're watching, we just want to remind you of a couple of slides before we do the second half of the show. As I mentioned at the top of the show, the Scanner Guys store is now open. Visit thescannerguyshow.com. You can purchase a hat, t-shirt, or coffee mug. The proceeds help to benefit the Scanner Guys. So definitely check out our online store, hat, t-shirt, and coffee mug. You can buy all three, buy one. We'll appreciate you no matter what you do there. So let's continue on. Next week, Dale Osborne, he is a avid watcher of the Scanner Guys. He'll be joining us live. He is a huge scanner enthusiast, and he's also works in the two-way radio side. So he's working on the other side of the radio, doing things with the trunking system out in his state. He's going to talk about that. We're also going to cover some NASCAR scanning as well. So he's also an avid NASCAR fan. So he's going to be a part of the show next week. We're looking forward to this. So he'll be our February interview. So Wednesday, February the 24th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. That should be a really good interview. Many of you people have seen Dale in the comments. So now you'll be able to put a face to the name because he'll be joining us live right here. So we're looking forward to that. And we just want to remind you of our retail partner. Our official retail partner is Scanner Master. Any of the items that we mentioned or services can be provided by Scanner Master. They've been in service since 1978. The nation's most experienced scanner dealer with all brands of police scanners, software and accessories, and programming. Shop them online. Give them a call at 1-800-722-6637. They are open Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Their website, again, is scannermaster.com. And you can email them at support@scannermaster.com. They're also on social media as well, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And let's dive into the questions now. Let's see what we've got there. I mean, Yes, Alicia, Dale will be on the show with us. Dale Osborne, he works playing with two-way radios, and then he also listens to them on a scanner. So he's on both sides of the hobby. He's on the listening side, and he's
Yeah.
also working on the technical side of the two-way radio aspect. So it's
Kind of
really
like a busman's holiday.
yes.
So, okay. So the first one we have here, we got a question from our buddy Chris in Michigan. And he heard an EMS call go out today. They sent two ambulances, a fire truck, and a fire chief. And why would they do that when they only need an ambulance? So usually when that happens, it's because they need extra manpower. The two guys on the ambulance might not be enough. They might need an extra couple hands here. Sometimes the second ambulance is there because now you've got four paramedics there instead of two, where the firefighters on the engine might not be trained as paramedics. I've been on fire departments where they did just that. They would send two ambulances to what we call an ALS call, an advanced life support call, because now you've got more paramedics on the scene. Even though you only got one victim, you need four paramedics. The guys on the engine or the truck may not be paramedics and are limited in what they can do to help. Other times it's just manpower. Extra guys to carry equipment, cots, hold bags up, all kinds of different stuff. And whenever you get two or three vehicles at a time, you typically have a supervisor, and that's when they're going to send a chief.
Now, the other reason why they send people out there, and our programmer, Greg Jolly, works for Attleboro Fire, and he told me that they do not hire any more firemen unless they're EMS certified. Now, the reason behind that is typically a town will have 3 or 4 ambulances if they are wealthy enough. Smaller towns may only have 1 or 2. Or they may have a contracted ambulance, such as an AMR or one of those other companies,
Right.
and the bus may be coming back from the hospital and be en route. Typically, what will happen is the fire department's able to respond a lot quicker than the EMS division, being EMS certified. They can start prepping the patient until the ambulance comes in there. And plus, it helps to have additional people to be able to work on that, especially if they need extra hands. Let's say there's somebody cut themselves open. You need all the hands you can get to be able to help with the scene. And a lot of times, I know when I was growing up in Middleborough, we had Massachusetts, we had AMR. And a lot of times they contracted one ambulance to cover. So typically what would happen is the closest hospital would be in Taunton. So there would be an EMS call would go to Taunton, and then they would shift a floating truck that would be covering another town, be right in the middle, and their response time would go down considerably because they're not as close. So with when the fire department responds with the ambulance, the fire department will get there first. They can start to assess the situation, help the patient until the EMS bus arrives. So that's one of the other reasons why. It's just because small cities or towns don't have always an ambulance standby. It could be out on another call, or it could be coming back from the hospital.
Yeah, and there could be a million reasons. When I was a paramedic on the fire department, and this is going back into the 70s, that was back during the same time that that TV show Emergency was still on the air, and we were different. We had a rescue squad just like they did, like John and Johnny and what's the other guy's name? I forget it was Johnny and
I don't know. I've never seen
whoever. Yeah. So, but we had a squad like that, fairly same equipment, same type of vehicle, but we also had ambulances. So we would send 2 paramedics on the ambulance and 2 paramedics on the squad, and that's how we handled EMS calls. But sometimes the squad was busy, so they'd get the other ambulance out there for the extra manpower. Sometimes the Roy, there you go. Yeah. Sometimes the guy was just too darn heavy. You get a guy that's 400 pounds, plus you got 100 pounds worth of cot and everything to carry. That's a lot of weight for 2 guys to lift. So, it's sometimes it's just manpower for lifting. Sometimes it's manpower for carrying equipment. Sometimes if you're running a full code with a heart attack or something like that, you need 6 or 7 hands to do all the stuff that's got to be done. So there could be a lot of reasons why you're going to have multiple vehicles. All right. So, yeah, I think we established that it was Roy. Yeah. Okay. What was the guy's name again? Yeah, Chet was the other guy. Chet was the engine was on the engine company, and it was
yes. That also can be the other issue why they we'll just leave that alone.
You put me on a cot, you're going to need 3 or 4 guys to carry it.
Yeah.
So sometimes these are people of size. So, Greg, we were talking last week about the new scanners that are going to have the pizza option. So, Greg said he heard that the next scanners that have the pizza port are going to be sale on February 30th this month.
Yes.
So, on February 30th,
mark your calendars.
Mark your calendars for February 30th, and the pizza port scanners will be available. It's a one day only.
Actually, they're gonna start shipping it on the 29th.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, so you'll be able to buy it on the 30th, but the dealers will have them on the 29th this year. So so apparently it looks like the unit and database is up, or at least it was up at 6:04 or 8:04 this evening.
At some point it'll be up.
Yeah.
And probably when you people are watching this in the future, it'll be up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but like I say, they're having all kinds of electrical problems down in Texas. If you haven't heard, there's a big storm, ice, snow, hail, wind, cats and dogs flying throughout the air. So the power could go down again, and if it does, just try it again tomorrow. It'll work. The question came up was, what does heap stand for? And when we're talking about heap errors. And my understanding was it was help, everything are puking, and lost kind of something in the translation. But it actually, what it meant is in the old days, heap was a list of memory address spaces. And when the program fills that up, and thanks to Adnod for this answer, it's a list of memory address spaces. And when it gets filled up, you have an overload, and that's when you get a heap error. So heap actually does mean something. The numbers that come after the heap error actually mean something to somebody, but not to real people.
Wait, to aliens or robots?
Computer technicians, computer programmers, which are usually aliens, by the way, or robots. It could be either one. We're not sure what planet computer programmers come from, but it's not Earth. At least the ones that do Windows stuff. Newbies should start. Oh, we were talking about quick keys. So, and we're going to do an entire show on quick keys, when to use them and when not to. I despise quick keys with a passion.
Oh, jeez.
I
don't mind quick keys. I just, they have their place. They certainly do have their place. I mean, some of you may use them for everything. Some of you may use it for certain things. It's just finding your happy medium. I mean, you can use them. You can't use, you don't have to use them. It's just, it's your radio. Do what you like.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, I'm just not a big fan of them myself. So I never use them. But we're gonna have the pluses and minuses with that. So, all right. So the next question came from Matt. Do I need a forklift? Probably. I'm a big boy, so.
Okay, and is Roy. Roy is the key word of the night.
Yes, Roy. Yeah. So, and let's see here. Now, does anybody remember the name of the captain who was a real fire captain? And don't look it up on IMDb either, guys. All right, so you can also get nothing to scan if you set all your favorites list to off. This is from Matt. So yeah, absolutely. So If you've got a zip code scanner, a Sentinel-based scanner, a 536, an SDS, or a Home Patrol, you create favorites lists. If all those favorites lists are turned off, you're going to get that dreaded nothing to scan. So you're going to go in, either turn on your quick key if you're using them, or hit the menu button and go into the set scan selection and turn at least one favorites list on that's in the location or doesn't have location control turned on. See here. Can you get the battery charger? We talked about that already. Jason tells us that lithium batteries are an option. They're more expensive, but they don't leak like alkalines do. So, so lithium batteries, and I've seen those in the stores. I haven't used them other than like an SDS 100, which comes with a lithium polymer battery. But I imagine, be careful though, because there are some lithium batteries that look like AA batteries, and they're fairly similar in size, but they're not 1.5 volt batteries. They're like 3 or 5 volt batteries. Make sure that the batteries you get are 1.25 or 1.5 volts each, because if you get one that's a higher voltage, you're going to have issues.
Yeah, you don't want to have any issues, that's for sure.
No, we're trying to fix and prevent issues tonight, not create them. John asked, when you first get the battery, should you charge it first before using it?
It's recommended in the manual, typically when you get a new device, to charge up that battery just so it's at a full charge. And then, depending on when you get it, it's going to vary. You may have scanner A that comes out of the box has got a half a charge, and scanner B, which has got a sliver of a charge. So you want to make sure that you definitely do that.
Yeah. Oh, we do have an answer to our question. Hank Stanley. He was a fire captain for the LA County Fire Department at the time. One thing with Emergency, the TV show, is a lot of I shouldn't say a lot, but some of the actors were actual firefighters. And one of them, and I forget who it was actually hired because he was a firefighter with an engineer who was capable of driving the engine, and but also had a SAG card, so he could act. And that was his only acting gig was that show, is because he could drive a fire truck, and it was pretty cool. So, and like I say, when I was on the fire department back in the 70s, it was like that was watching Emergency. When it was on was. We'd reschedule training sessions because we can't do that night because Emergency was on. Let's see here. The best amount of time to charge your 436. It gives you the option. So on the 436, the default charge time is 14 hours, which is the normal charge rate for that radio with the amount of current that it provides to the batteries that come with the radio, which are the 2300 milliamp batteries. You can adjust that charge time up and down, and it's just that. It's a straight timer, nothing more. It's not a smart charger. And you can adjust that up and down. So if you get 2500 milliamp batteries, you want to add another hour or so to the charge time. If you got 2100s, you can lop an hour off. So it all depends on the amount of the charge capacity of your batteries. And on the SDS, it's actually a smart charger. So when you plug it in, it will charge the battery until the battery is full and then maintain a trickle. On a 436, a 396, a 325, a 125, it's just a basic charger. Let's see here. If you want to point your Yagi to a specific antenna or a tower, is there a website that will show you the location of the towers in your area?
Radio Reference will actually show you the site locations. We covered a show not too long ago about simulcast and some of those issues. And basically, yes, if you go in a Radio Reference and then you go into the FCC license portion of the site, it'll actually show all the locations for a particular simulcast, all the towers that are part of that simulcast site. And it'll show all of those towers. So what you do is you look for your house on the map where you're located, and then you figure out, okay, let me try the maybe the furthest antenna. We discussed this last week. Matter of fact, was it last week we showed? You know, we showed the simulcast system for Charlotte. I think it was last week. And what you want to probably do is to try to aim at a further site and aim that directional antenna at it, because that'll probably be your best option, is to kind of eliminate some of those closer antennas, because it's going to have a ability to zero into that. So definitely radio reference is a huge the great things they've done over at Radio Reference, compiled all this information into one website. And not only that, having the ability to kind of dive deeper into the technical portion of it. And that's going to be a huge help. We also had some other shows regarding simulcast, so certainly look through our YouTube channel. I'm sure we're going to do it again because it's the hot topic of this day and age. We'll probably dive into it again. But yeah, you want to make sure that you take a look at Radio Reference.
All right, so the question came up, what is ALS versus BLS when we were talking about
basic,
the extra...
Basic life support and advanced life support.
Yeah. So basic life support is, Band-Aids and fixing the owie. And advanced life support is ABCs, airway, breathing, cardiac. So if you're having an issue like that, it's advanced life support. If you've got a minor injury or something like that, it's going to be basic. And they could be extricating a patient too. That's why they might need additional help. And when I was on the fire department, our extrication gear was kept on the ladder truck. So we would send a big, huge ladder truck out to an accident scene because that's just where we stored the extrication gear. Because we had 2 stations at the time. We had an engine and an ambulance at each station, but we only had one ladder truck, but we only had one set of extrication gear. So that's how we did that. And like I say, your fire department's going to be different.
Yeah, every fire department's going to be different.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was on that fire department, and then when I went to another agency, worked as a dispatcher at the same time. On that one, they would send 2 ambulances to every EMS call for the extra manpower because they didn't have paramedics on the engines.
Well, the town of Lakeville had one ambulance, which was, they had 2 of them. They had a newer one and they had an old one that was 1980s. Mm-hmm. And this was in the probably early 2000s. So there's a different reason why they sometimes brought two buses, because one could break down.
Yeah.
that was the one thing with that town, they needed, in order to get so they can run their own EMS because of the population. There probably was some rule or regulation from the state.
Yeah.
So they brought out this old, it looked like it was from a TV show, old ambulance, which they were using. And then they got a fairly new one. So, they were a little nervous when the 1981 went out. So sometimes, they would send that in just in case, if it was free.
When I first got on the fire department, and this is dating me, I started on the fire department in 1977, and we had 2 Cadillac ambulances. They're basically a Cadillac front end with a almost like a hearse style back end that were ambulances, and that's what ambulances were back then. And I was on the fire department for about a month or maybe 2 months when we got our first, what we call them, box ambulances, which were a pickup truck cab with a great big huge square box on the back. And it was like, wow, look at all this space. It was such a dream that was to work in, compared to you get 2 or 3 paramedics trying to work on a patient in the back of this cramped little Cadillac ambulance. So and now, of course, all ambulances are big boxes. Although back there, some of them used just regular vans with the extended roof. But those were like the mid-sized one. But those boxes were excellent. What an excellent, improvement, big improvement. Let's see here. it's IRP or QRS. I'm not sure what IRP or Q. Oh, quick response service. So apparently, wherever Joe lives, they have a thing called IRP or QRS, immediate response personnel or quick response service. So that's a protocol. Like I say, every area is going to be a little bit different. Let's see here. 4 paper clips actually decodes encryption and the hum. Okay, so use 4 paper clips in a cross pattern to get rid of encryption. Alrighty, I actually met Randolph Mantooth, the guy who played one of them, and I think it was Roy. I actually met him. He was doing. He gave the keynote address at one of the conferences, and we got to go up and shake his hand and blah. And it was 30 seconds of FaceTime, which I thought was pretty cool. Is there a way to edit the name of a bank on a 125?
No, there's not. Hopefully, this is something that I would love. If Bearcat Joe is out there listening, this would be something super cool to have the ability. I'm not too sure if we would be able to do this with a simple firmware update. That would be a cool feature to actually name the bank. Especially if you're using the scanner for rail fanning, for example, or aviation. And this is, I'm going to try to explain the benefit of it. So let's say you go to a particular airport. You can name that bank the airport's name, and then all the channels that are in that bank are for that airport. Yep. Same thing with railroads. You could divide up each bank into particular areas that you rail fan, and then you can have a name that pertains to that area. Or let's say you have multiple railroads that you like to monitor. You could have all your CSX frequencies in Bank 1 and Norfolk Southern and the other one, and then you can have a little bit more fun with your alpha tagging versus putting in CSX Road 1 or whatever it is. You can just put in CSX on the top and then Road Dispatch 1 or whatever you want to put there. It gives you a little bit more ability to kind of take advantage of the full screen.
Yeah, it would be nice, but like you said, unfortunately at this time that's not a possibility. But I mean, we love the 125, and you and I, we rave about it all the time.
Yeah, so I mean, that would be something if there was a future firmware update that would give the ability. That would be on my wish list. Would be to be able to do that, and I'm sure Butel Software, he would be able to do a couple little tweaks with the software, and you'd be able to do it right through the computer. I'm sure.
Absolutely. Let's see here. Live on Patrol. Is that one of those TV shows that you watch?
I don't know.
Or no, I guess this is a YouTube show. Okay. So apparently there's one of those live. Was it Live PD? Was that the name of the
Live
TV
PD's
show?
Been canceled by
Okay.
by AMC.
Okay, but apparently there's some YouTube channels that do kind of the same thing. So I don't watch TV, so I'm not. I don't keep up with those things. AJ asks, how do I know if it's... Oh, we already talked about that one. Boy, bouncing around a little bit here. Can't get live chat on his Roku. RC94 is watching us on his Roku, and he can't get the live chat.
Yeah, there's a way to do that. With your Roku remote, you're going to have to press up, and then there's a little chat icon, and you'll be able to enable it. It's more of a visual thing, but if you mess with it, you'll be able to turn on the live chat. The live chat will go on one side of the screen, and it'll constantly be there. But depending on if you don't mind one of us being blocked or the slideshow being blocked, it may be a benefit during this portion of the show, but not. I don't think during the show where we're doing the slideshows, because it'll block it.
And the problem with that is I don't think there's a way that you can scroll the chat back like you can on a computer. So if you're watching the chat on a computer, you can scroll back and see prior messages. With the live chat on a Roku or an Apple TV, you can only see the last couple of messages, and they'll disappear after X amount of seconds.
Yeah.
Let's see here. The itinerary, we talked about that. We've talked about that. So Dave's 436 caught COVID and died. So rest in peace, Dave's 436. Let's see here. We talked about that. We talked about that. Um, well, we've done a pretty good job with the comments already here. Randolph Mantooth was Roy.
Okay,
Um,
Alicia.
here was.
Have you purchased? You requested the coffee mug. Have you purchased the coffee mug? Like so far in the store, there's no ability to do beer mugs. But if have you purchased a coffee mug because you're the one that suggested it, so I was able
Yeah,
to work my magic and get us some coffee mugs. Just wondering
there
if you
you go.
have.
Gordon, just a minute or two before that, asked if there's a way to run his 436 without batteries once plugged into power. Yeah, you can do that. It'll be in serial mode, so just plug it into USB power. Just remember a couple things. Number one, if the power goes out, the cable gets jostled or unplugged, the radio is going to shut off right away. And if you've got the recording or replay feature turned on, you stand a good chance of getting your card corrupted. We normally recommend that if you're going to run a 436 or an SDS or any other radio that uses a zip code, that you keep rechargeable batteries in the radio when you're plugged into power. Uh, so I do that with my home patrols, so that if the power does go out, even briefly, you stand a much less chance of getting your card corrupted. Let's see here. Engineers are not real people. Yes, we know that. Yeah, engineers are not real people, just like computer programmers. They are Martians, or are they from Pluto? I forget which. Um, let's see here. Yeah, almost every firefighter had Roy or Johnny and Roy or something like that for their passwords when computer passwords started coming out. We had when we first started getting email, half the guys on the fire department had the emergency tones as their email alert, and that got old real quick. Um, we have a special ambulance for people like Rich here in Toronto. Yeah, there are some fire departments. They have one here in Phoenix too, and they just gave it a random ambulance number, and it actually is. It's got a heavy duty cot, and I guess they use a wider box for people of size. Um, when I was on the police department, we arrested a guy who was so big that it took 4 pairs of handcuffs interlocked in order to get his arms back, and we couldn't get him in the back of a police car. We had to. One of the guys had a cargo van, and he got his own cargo van. We loaded him back of a cargo van to bring him into the police station because we couldn't fit him in the back of a police car. Let's see here. There are some codes that Randy has that his department uses in his area. So an alpha call is basic first aid. A Bravo gets an engine with no ambulance. A Charlie call gets an engine and medics, etc. So every fire department's going to have different classifications. When I was on the fire department in my area, code 1 was an ambulance call, code 2 was an engine call, code 3 was a fire call, and code 4 was the stuff's hitting the fan type of call. And let's see here. And then he continues on with that. Quickies are fine on the 996, but less useful on an SDS. Yeah, I can certainly understand that. The quickies are probably more appropriate on a 996 type scanner because of just the way they're laid out. So, and they're kind of a transition between the old banks channels and bank scanners, like the 125 or the 780 before that, and into the zip code scanners. What was the name of the dog on emergency? I Oh boy, I remember the dog, but I don't remember the name, so I'm sure it's going to be in the chat here someplace. Um, so let's see here. The dog was Boot, and then later on was Henry. Okay. Um, and remember the joke about on Indiana Jones? He was named after the dog. Yeah, Mike Stoker. He was the real firefighter and drove the engine on emergency. He was actually an LA County firefighter. Apparently, Marco was also a real firefighter. Um, and yeah, they had to hire a firefighter to drive the truck. Yep. And let's see here. Uh, yeah, Joe says that if they did an emergency remake, they'd probably destroy it. Yeah, unfortunately, these days the shows are nowhere near the quality that they were back then. So, Dick Hammer, he was the first engineer. He was the guy. Okay, apparently he was the guy who was actually a real engineer. Apparently, Mike Captain Stoker was not an actual one. So that actually sounds more like a porn name to me. Um, yeah, let's see here. Joe says he finds it better using a Yagi to null interfering sites rather than actually going towards a simulcast site. So we were talking earlier about using the directional antenna. So it's a one thing you can try is to point the antenna away from various sites to find that sweet spot. It might not be pointed directly at one site. It might be kind of pointed in between. That might work better than trying to point it directly at an individual site. Our new guy, Braden, wanted to say hi. So, hi, Braden. He's our new guy from a couple weeks back. Corey writes that when he programs his 996p2 on his computer, he sometimes can't finish the programming on ArcXT because he gets an error message. So when that happens, he's got to start over. So make sure that you have the latest version of ArcXT and make sure that your COM port settings are correct. Those are the typical problems that people have with poor connection between the radio and the computer. So let's see here. All righty. So Dave inherited a 75 XLT. When it's charging, will it say charge off? So on a 75 XLT, look underneath the battery compartment. There is a little switch there that allows you to switch between alkaline batteries and rechargeable batteries. If the switch is set to alkaline, the radio will not charge the batteries in the radio. That's to protect you from trying to charge alkaline batteries, which you never want to do. So if you have rechargeable batteries, make sure that switch is fixed, is set over to the other side. Robin asks if it's possible to purchase the slim battery and battery door for his SDS. Yes, they are actually in stock now at Scanner Master, and we are the sole supplier of the slim battery and battery door in the U.S. So we have them. They're not cheap, but we are the only place that have them, and you can get them at scannermaster.com, our retail partner.
Yeah, right down in the bottom of the description. Click the link there. That'll help us out too if you use that link, and definitely click that, and we will get you right over to the website.
All righty. So Don actually writes his old Bearcat 3 and 4 and his Radio Shack Pros had buttons to slow down or speed up the scan rates. So older scanners, that made a difference because you could actually see the scan rate as the light was flashing next to next. The newer scanners, they scan so much faster that that's not practical to see a real-time demonstration of how fast because it would just blow your mind. And it really, when you get to scan speeds as fast as they are now, it really doesn't matter. And as far as how many channels per second the scan rate actually is on any particular radio these days, number one, it really doesn't matter. And number two, it depends. Some scanners will scan through the systems faster if all the frequencies in the scanner are in frequency order. Sometimes it just scans so fast that even that difference is negligible. So basically, the scan rate is fast, and that's really all that matters on that. So let's see here. Joe's got the emergency tones on his phone. I've used those as my ringtone every once in a while, but it gets old pretty quick. But like I say, half the guys in the fire department had that on there. So when a phone rang, everybody would go for their phone because everybody in the department had those tones on there. They actually tried to get us to change the tones for our firehouse to the same tones. That's how crazy these guys were. And we couldn't do it because we used a different protocol. The actual Squad 51 is at a museum in LA County. And there is an LA County Fire Museum. And one of the Squad 51 vehicles are there. One of the Engine 51 vehicles was at a little fire department up in Northern California for years and years. And I came across that once when I was on a trip out there. And apparently a few years later, it made its way back to Universal. And I think it's down there. But there were several vehicles over the year. I mean, that show was on TV for a long time. And there were several vehicles. And sometimes you'll see a 77 Dodge in one scene, and the next scene it's a 75 Dodge instead because they're using stock video. But they did change up the vehicles, so there were multiple versions of them. There is an antenna locator on the Radio Reference website. So you can go there and on the database tab, scroll down to FCC license proximity search. Type in your location, it'll go up to 4 miles and list all the antennas. So not only will it show the different simulcast sites, assuming that they're licensed properly, but it'll show other transmitter sites as well. Gordon obviously was a fire medic at one point, and they used a Ryder rental truck for his real big patients. They need to remove the living room window to get them out. Yeah, we've had guys like that, but the one guy we had that we had to bring out, he actually had an oversized door built into his house because he couldn't get in and out a regular sized door. Bariatric ambulance. Thank you, Dave. I couldn't remember the term, but they have one here in Phoenix. So, let's see here. If you are a member at Radio Reference, please update your local wiki pages for your area with those color codes and such. So it's a great way to share that information. Dave says you're going to be buying a cup. Thank you, Dave. And let's see here. Like MacGyver, the new one bombed first. That the first one was better. They made a new MacGyver show?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I mean, there is some pretty decent programming out there. I mean, there's a new Magnum PI show. There's a MacGyver show.
I never watched the old ones.
Yeah.
Although that guy from MacGyver, he was the guy who was on Stargate, right?
I haven't watched the old or the new. I just know of it because of pop culture.
I watched Stargate and Star Trek, and that's about the only TV shows I ever watched. And I don't even bother with Star Trek anymore. Stargate was good. So that was really about the only show that I watch a lot. So let's see here. So apparently Greg has got a friend, which I would have bet money against. I'm just teasing Greg. So apparently a friend of his is a former fire...
The views expressed by Rich Carlson are not the views of the scanner guys.
And you might jokes too. So...
I will have to start running that disclaimer here.
So apparently a friend of Greg's is a former police officer, firefighter, and he works as an extra in the Chicago PD and Chicago Fire. I assume those are TV shows.
On NBC, Wednesday nights.
All right. Well, can't watch them on Wednesday night. You got to be watching us.
Yeah.
So he gives them help.
That's why you have on demand or DVRs.
There you go. When they were filming some movies in the town where I was working on, is uh, when they were filming Home Alone. Uh, they we had a bunch of police officers working traffic, and every once in a while they would come up to one of us and say, "Hey, we got a police officer in this shot. How would he?" How would he wear his radio? How would he talk at the front door and stuff like that? So sometimes they try to get it right, and sometimes
I mean, you
they
don't do it like this.
Yeah, yeah. I love it when
Or
they
talk into the back of the radio.
yeah, they talk into the back of the radio or the back of the microphone. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
or like this.
yeah.
Oops, that was probably loud. Yeah.
The one ear that I got that works no longer does.
You know what cracks me up is when they're using those bell phone radios.
Oh yeah. Oh, what was that movie with
Die Hard? Yes.
Yeah,
The
they had
radio
the
that could
magic
talk to anybody.
the magic radio could talk to anybody except when they didn't want the other guys to hear it, and then they wouldn't work. So
Yeah.
all right, so apparently there's some discrepancies. Mike Stoker was a real firefighter. Marco was not, but they used Marco's real name. So some of the guys were real firefighters, and some of the guys weren't. Who they were, we don't know for sure. So go to IMDb now, and you can.
Well, not now. At the end of the show.
Not now, at the end of the show, right? Okay, so we were talking earlier about the 75 with the battery switch. Apparently, the 72 also had one of those battery switches.
Yes.
So now, if you take a look at the 325 on the inside of the battery compartment, you can see where the battery switch would be. Yeah.
Well, you're not giving us your telephone number?
No, this one doesn't have my phone number. That's
okay.
But that's where the battery switch would be on a 75. But they used the same plastic, so they just played it over the switch there. All right. So, Corey has a good question, especially topical for this week. When the weather temps are very cold out and you have a scanner in your car, what's a safe temp for operation? So, having grown up in the Chicago area, I would have scanners in my car, and I had a Pro 2006 in my car at the time, and I left my car outside in the driveway overnight because, of course, my wife gets to park in the garage, and the actual display froze on the radio, and it's a liquid crystal display, and it actually froze, and it wouldn't work, and I had to wait until the radio warmed up before the display would start working. Actually, the radio itself worked; you could hear it, but there was no display.
Yeah, it's usually the display will go a little funky in the cold weather. I've had several radios, never been able to park them in a garage, originally from the Northeast, and it usually be the display. The radio would work perfectly fine, and then once it warmed up, it was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, just be careful, with the metal, not metal, but the plastic components such as the knobs. With plastic, they can easily crack. So, just be careful with a lot of the plastic parts on the radio.
So where I live here in Phoenix now, we have just the opposite problem. The displays don't freeze; they boil.
It gets too hot.
Yeah, and so if I when I was out here visiting years ago, I had a radio in my car, and I left the car outside all day long in the sun with the sunroof. The sunroof itself closed, but it basically baked the display of the radio, and it went all black. And a friend of mine said, try putting it in the freezer overnight. And so I did. I put it in the freezer overnight, brought it back out, and left it in the living room, and then let it thaw out again. And it worked fine after that. So be careful. If you live in a hot climate like this, keep a cover for your radios and to keep them from getting overheated in the sun. Plus, it'll help prevent theft because people won't know what's underneath there. I went to Walmart and I bought some towels properly sized towels that match the interior color of my seats. So I put these towels over the radios, and people don't even notice it because it's the same color as the seats. So be careful of environmental concerns. Let's see here. How is the LCN number calculated for Tier 3 trunking systems? So the Tier 3 is a terminology for DMR trunking systems. And LCNs are logical channel numbers, although there's a different terminology that they actually use. They're for DMR systems. I think it's voodoo or magic. I'm not sure how they come up with those numbers, but typically I would suggest to people to go to Radio Reference. And if you click on the site itself and then look at the list of frequencies on the site, it should tell you what the LCN numbers are for trunking systems, and just program it in that way. If they're not listed there, to tell you the truth, I really don't know how to determine those on a DMR system. You could probably use LCN Finder, but I'm not positive. I haven't done it. All right, so Joe tells us that the Ward engine was at Yosemite. That's probably where I saw it, and now it's at the LA County Fire Museum. And Adam 12 was another show. That was actually produced by the same crew that did Emergency, and every once in a while the guys from the different shows would show up on the other guy's show.
Crossover.
Yeah, the crossover. Yeah, so
and that's what happens with Chicago Med, Chicago PD, and Chicago Fire. They're all on Wednesday night, and the characters will cross over from one episode to another.
There's 3 of them?
Yes, there's 3 of them. I don't remember the exact order. I believe it's Med, Fire, and then PD. So it's basically from 8 o'clock to 11 on the East Coast. Yeah, so all 3 shows. I mean, there's a whole... I mean, if we had a different channel or if we did a Unplugged, I could talk a little bit more about television stuff. I don't want to bore people. But yeah, I mean... it's quite an interesting thing. I mean, NBC had a little debacle, and they had to save their programming after they screwed up their whole entire programming for something that happened a few years ago.
Yeah. So I didn't even know those shows existed.
Yeah, there's a lot of shows, that involve medical. Mm-hmm. I mean, every network has got, some sort of medical show. Yeah. The Resident on Fox. The one that I like is New Amsterdam, which is on, I want to say that's CBS or NBC. I can't remember. But the networks, they've really got around the public safety aspect of things, whether it be a hospital show or a police type show. I mean, there's a really good show on CBS called SWAT. That seems to be a pretty good show. But yeah, NBC for Wednesday night, they basically give you a block of 3 shows, which is nuts. Yeah. And it's kind of cool that they cross over the characters constantly. So, you may see the storylines may not coincide with each other, but you'll have characters from the other show show up on the scene, which is kind of crazy. Yeah. But just come in and out of that show, without it having to coincide with the storyline. That's all across all 3 shows. Sometimes they have it so it's across all 3 shows, but a lot of times it's just those characters coming in and out.
Ah, cool. Let's see here. MacGyver's on season 5. Okay. The new MacGyver, yeah. So yeah, the original MacGyver was the guy from Stargate, Richard Anderson. So let's see here, same guy. Okay, so apparently where Chris lives in Lansing has a Station 51. We in my area, we have my old area in Chicagoland, we had a regional fire dispatch center called Red Center, and there was a Station 51. It was Lincolnshire Riverwoods, and they had station 51. So they got a lot of grief on that. So. Yeah, next on the scanner, guys, TV Achiever 101. Well, that'll be a Jonathan show because,
Yeah, I mean, there's so much cool stuff. I mean, we're
yeah,
we're actually in the process of deciding if we want to do bonus content,
mm-hmm.
which will be exclusive to like scanner guys, create
Yeah,
like the fan, like you guys that really love us when we go off on a tangent down a different road other than
mm-hmm.
scanners. We're thinking about doing something like that. There's a couple of things that are in the works, so definitely subscribe to our social media channels if you haven't already. Also, sign up for the newsletter. At some point, once we figure out what we want to do, we're going to definitely put together a survey to be able to see what you guys are looking for additional
Yeah,
bonus content other
yeah.
than this program. So there may be some cool stuff coming down the pike.
Cool. Well, let's get back to radio stuff. John has got a TRX1. His screen shows traffic on a talk group, but no audio. It's only on phase 2 systems. So I'm mostly a Uniden guy, so I'm not that familiar with whistlers. So if somebody has an answer to that, we'd appreciate it. But there could be a couple things I can think of off the top of my head. Number one, if it's encrypted, then the radio wouldn't hear it, of course. Number two, if you're getting simulcast error. And number three, there might be some sort of programming on a whistler that differentiates between phase 1 and phase 2. On a Uniden, it doesn't matter. If the Uniden is capable of phase 2, it doesn't matter if it comes in as phase 1 or phase 2. The radio just works. It might be different on a TRX. I'm not that positive. Let's see here. On close call, Charlie asked us, when you're using close calls, is there a way to set the radio display not just the frequency, but the talk group number? So when you use close call, it doesn't display talk groups. It only displays the frequency. It can also display the PL or DPL code or the NAC code as appropriate, but you won't hear a talk group on close call because close call does not work on trunking. So, and if it picks up on a trunking frequency, it picks it up as a conventional channel. So it won't pick it up in trunking mode. So the next question was sometimes a stubby antenna will work better for simulcast as well as for concealment. So yeah, we were talking earlier about ways of eliminating simulcast interference or at least reducing it. If you use a stubby antenna, sometimes that will help. Again, that goes to that worse is better type of thing. Dale writes that they and the CHP, he's in Montana, but they and the CHP had issues with the LCD displays on certain two-way radios in the cold or the heat. So yeah, that would always be an issue. LCD displays are liquid crystals, and liquid will tend to freeze or boil depending on the temperature, and that can cause problems. Let's see here. So apparently, Hytera DMR systems use a base frequency and steps along with the LCN. So the LCN equals the base plus the LCN times the step. So there are complicated mathematical formulas often used to determine these LCN numbers. So, like I say, if they're listed in radio reference, you're probably better using that. So, let's see here. Car batteries will boil too. Yeah. And out here in Phoenix, we have to replace our car batteries every couple of years because they don't last that long because of the heat. So in the north, they don't last long because of the cold. Here it's because of the heat. Let's see here. At Kristenpedia, he and or she is a they are a new subscriber to us. Thank you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the little bell icon if you want to get the notifications. But please make sure you subscribe. Subscribers are very important. Let's see here. And do I have over 60 radios in my shack? Probably pretty close to it. I got 16 unit and scanners in the rack behind me here. There's an ICOM, a couple two-way radios, another ICOM, and some GREs on the bottom. So yeah, so there's 20 scanners on the rack plus about 5 or 6 two-ways there. I got another 8 or 10 here. So yeah, I got a few here and there, and they all work. The only ones that's not plugged in is that 2004 on the shelf. I keep that as kind of a museum piece. True music lighting. Okay. First scanner owner here. He's got to send his TRX2 for service a couple weeks ago after he got it when it went dead. So took him a while to get it fixed, but Whistler got it fixed for him. So good on you. If you have a Whistler scanner and it's in the warranty period, it goes bad, go to whistlergroup.com to set up a warranty repair. If you bought it from us, we will be glad to send you a copy of your receipt by email. So just give us a call or send us an email to support@scannermaster.com. Give us your order number, and we will resend your receipt to you so you can present that to either Unit and Whistler for warranty purposes. Also, if you've bought software or you buy software, make sure you buy software in the download version if you can, because if you ever need that product key again, all you got to do is call us or email us, and we can send you that product key again by email. If you bought the software on a CD or now on a thumb drive, the product key comes on a little label. It comes in the packaging. If you lose that, there's no way for us to recover it. So buy it as a download if you can. Not only can you get that product key again, but you will also save money because you don't have to pay shipping charge. You'll get the use of the software right away because you'll get that product key automatically sent by email. And it's just a whole lot better for you to buy it as a download than buying it on the media. Plus, if you buy it on a CD or a thumb drive, you're probably going to have to download it anyway because you're running the installer on the CD or on the thumb drive, and then it's going to find that there's an upgrade that's needed. So guess what? You got to download the upgrade. So save yourself a step. Just buy the download. Let's see here. Braden's got P25 Phase 2 in Omaha, but he programmed the talk group into his 996. He's still picking him up. If a system is listed as P25 Phase 2, it may not actually be using P25 Phase 2. It could be using Phase 1, or it could be using a mixture of both. The way Phase 2 works means that every radio that's involved in that particular conversation has to be Phase 2 compliant and operating in Phase 2 mode. If just one radio that's participating in that conversation, even just by monitoring it, is a Phase 1 radio only, the talk group will then revert to Phase 1 mode as long as that radio is a part of that conversation, and unless the system is programmed to ignore a Phase 1 radio. So in your instance, there's probably one radio or something that's programmed in Phase 1 mode, and you're able to hear it on your XT. If it was operating actually in Phase 2 mode, your XT would just ignore it. So let's see here. Kristen actually is a female, so I'm sorry about that. There wasn't any way to tell at the point. There are a lot more women in the scanner hobby than one would think, based on the phone calls we get at work and participation. So there are actually a lot of women in the scanner hobby. So people think it's more of a guy thing, but not really. Let's see here. Bob is in Ottawa, Ontario, and he's got a Phase 2 system. All his apartments are digital. So Phase 2 system is all digital all the time. So when he hears a transmission at the top screen, it doesn't say Phase 2 at the end of the field, bugging me why it isn't. So most unit and scanners will indicate that it's Phase 2, but there could be something else going on. If there's a way that you can view that on a computer program to see if it's actually operating in phase one mode. That's probably what's happening. So let's see here. And let's see here. So Dale's got knows of three women who like scanners. Um, so that there are, like I said, there are a lot of women in the scanner hobby. And like I said, based on the calls that we get calls from that all the time. So, and Bob, continuing on with your phase one versus phase two, look at the talk group indication and see if it says T in the mode field. If it says T, then users have reported that it's phase two all the time. If it shows D, then it's reported as phase one. But again, that might not always be accurate. It could go either way. And that's the end of our comment period here.
Great. So thank you so much for everybody joining us this evening. We appreciate that. We're just going to do a few reminder messages before we sign off this evening. So let's dive into that right now. So we want to remind you to shop the Scanner Guys online at our brand new website, thescannerguyshow.com. That's thescannerguyshow.com. You can purchase one of these fine items. We have our hats and our t-shirts and our coffee mugs now. So definitely check out our website and purchase one of those. Will help support the channel. We also want to remind you that Dale Osborne will be joining us next week. We are looking forward to that. He's going to be our guest. He's going to talk about his experience with scanners, his experience working on the other side of the two-way radio, and he's also going to talk to us a little bit about his experience going to the track with a scanner, a NASCAR track, that is. As always, you can definitely follow us, the channel. You can download the YouTube app on Apple TV or Roku and watch us on your TV if you like to do that. Our next broadcast is Wednesday, February the 24th of 2021, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. As always, we appreciate you here. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're watching us on one of your devices, that you can do that on YouTube. Also, Train Aficionado Live will be coming up next month, Monday, March the 1st of 2021, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Haven't decided on the topic as of yet, but hit the subscribe button over in their channel as well. Follow, like, and subscribe to their social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at trainaficionado.com. Got some really good stuff coming down the pipeline. I just have to work on it. Some new trackside guides that one of our loyal readers of the blog has sent over to me. I just have to put that all together, and that'll be really cool for you guys that rail fan along the midsection of the Northeast Corridor. He's put together some phenomenal information, which we're going to be sharing through our website there. So definitely check out trainaficionado.com. And don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to our social media as well. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at The Scanner Guys. And then check out our website, thescannerguyshow.com. That's thescannerguyshow.com. And we thank you so much for watching our show each and every week. It's certainly a lot of fun, for you guys to be out there. Looks like Bearcat Joe just popped up, and he's made some notes on the 125 AT, the bank tags. Can't promise it though, but at least he has our ear, and that's the great thing about Bearcat Joe. He's got his ear on Radio Reference, and he's also listening to the show each and every week. So that's the great thing. He's going to carry the torch as Paul Obitz did, being the eyes and ears of the community, and taking notes, on the various things, and see what can be done, and go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's great to have somebody that is able to engage the scanner users, that understands what we're going through and can translate that into the unknown language that the engineers speak in order to make this a reality.
Yeah, I mean that's something, one of the very many things that can be, that some of the best ideas come from the users. I mean, a lot
Yep.
of times, the engineers are just figuring out how to make it work.
Yeah.
And then there's things that's overlooked that a user could say, "Boy, if this would just do this simple thing, this would be a really cool thing." So,
Yep.
we thank you guys so much for joining us each and every week. Definitely, I can't mention enough. Hit the subscribe button to this channel. We're trying to grow this, and it's definitely an audience that we're trying to build here. And follow us on our social media. We're trying to grow that as well on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So if you're on any one of those platforms, follow us there. Of course, during the spring and summer months, I'll be a little bit more active. Hopefully doing some stuff outside, whether it be scanner related or whatever it may be, and be posting a little bit more. Maybe go live on some of the other social media platforms. But yeah, and our website as well. That's definitely a key thing too. Bookmark our website so you have our website in hand. We do have a blog on there as well, so definitely check that out. I haven't posted anything as of yet on the blog, but I hope to when time frees up a little bit more for me. Just a lot going on, and hopefully some good things in the future. Anything else that you want to add, Rich, before we head off?
No, we had a good time tonight, and we will see you all next week.
All right. Well, I thank you so much. I'm Jonathan Higgins.
I'm Rich Carlson.
And we'll catch you again next week right here on the Scanner Guys. Dale Osborne, one of our loyal viewers, will be joining us right here. We'll be covering the country from all points, pretty much.
Yeah.
From what would that be? The Midwest? Would it be
Up north.
up
The Great
north?
White North, yeah.
The Great White North, and then Arizona, being in his studios in Arizona.
It's also known as Southern Canada.
Southern Canada. All right. Well, I thank you guys so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your week. Stay safe out there. And if you're pretty much anywhere in the country, keep warm and dress accordingly. Have a great week.
I guess.
Bye-bye.